Hi everyone, this is Kushal Shurishmali and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm just going to discuss about the app that I have built. It's probably if you're coming from a previous video, if you have not seen it before, you will find the link in the description down below. But this app was about image annotator built using Rust, and the library that was used was ICE. For backend, we just used mostly Rust language. External libraries that I've used, we will discuss about those in the coming videos. But for now, this video is going to be about how do you test your backend logic of an app in Rust. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate how I did that, and I'm going to walk through the code as well. So you can probably just start with that. So let me quickly run the app and show you what I've built so far. And yes, then we can start looking in the tests. Okay. Alright, so over here you can see that this app is launched. Okay, by the way, this is cross-platform. So if you're curious whether this works on Mac OS or Windows, it does, right? If you click on light, dark, custom, you see that you have theming as well. Now I can go ahead and select a folder. If you see that next is disabled for now, if I click on select folder, if I select for example sample folder, okay, let's go with sample folder, and then this next is up it just turns out as a valid button now, and this select folder is grayed out even though this is valid, but you will be able to click on it, but the color is grayed out now. So when I click on next, you see that the image appears over here. I can zoom in, I can pan the image here and there, right? So you can always do that, and when you want to annotate, you can say that okay, now I see that this is not a proper image, so I'm gonna say hey, this is incorrect. Okay, and I'm gonna say incorrect image, probably not of a hill. Okay, I'm just saying it could be of hill. Okay, I didn't notice while I'm demonstrating, while I'm demoing this. Okay, so you can click on dark and light theming as well, that is there, and you can mark it as correct again if you want to change it. When I click on export, right, you can actually see that it appears over here. So you see that the folder has 3 images already, so it has already passed that folder, and you see that nature, this whatever image was there, it has a notation as false, and it says incorrect image, probably not of a hill. Okay, and it also has a timestamp when it was opened, this whole folder for annotation, so that is also there. So you can see 7:45 is the time, and I'm right now it's 7:46. So yes, I think we are on there, like we are precise with that. Okay, so when I click on next image, for example, this says fail to fill whole buffer, right? So that just shows you whatever the error was. I want to just show whatever that appears, because the libraries are generally good enough to show a good message. So for example, this invalid file.txt was there, so of course it's not an image, so it will show you that message over there. Okay, so click on next image, you see that there's another image. Okay, I can zoom in, and again I can mark it as correct, for example, and I can say hey, okay, export please, and if you see that this is true now. Okay, and that's it. Yeah, so this is very helpful. This is a bug, and I'm open to if anyone wants to resolve it. Okay, so while I'm demoing this, of course there will be few bugs that you would like to resolve. So yeah, please feel free, if you want to take a look at the code, we will fix that, of course. But in this video, what I want to talk about is the testing, right? So that means we have not tested it properly, and that's a reason that we want to add more coverage to our app. Okay, so over here you can see there are a few features that are very important to this app, right? One of them is, of course, you want to export the right data to a JSON file. Whether that is retained or not is also a question. For example, if a JSON file already existed before and you have opened another folder, so that JSON file should be retained and another list should be added there for the corresponding folder name, right? So that's definitely there. The other feature that we want to test in this app is whether a valid file or invalid file is detected properly or not. So you already saw that invalid file.txt had an error message shown up on the UI. So you want to check that as well, whether this works properly or not. Okay, so I'm going to talk about these two features. That means we haven't tested the whole app yet, and that's of course there. I would just want to show you how we are doing it right now, and as we move ahead, this app will of course get better and the test coverage will be there. So yes, I don't want to lie, that things are perfect, things are going well. Of course, they are not, but it's a lot of work that I've put into. So please bear with me, okay? So you see that we have a testing module already here. We kind of bring everything into our like current namespace, right? Current scope from super namespace. Okay, so we have kind of got all the modules, all the functions that we are going to test. And then we have a few imports here like stored path, path buff from string, from stir and once. So I'm going to talk about it once we move ahead, okay? So the idea behind testing these apps was, first of all, when you are testing whether a file is valid or invalid, you always want to generate that file, right? And you don't want to generate a single file for every test function, right? That's not a best idea. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you do it only once. You generate an invalid file, for example, only once, and you generate a valid file only once. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do while I'm doing it. So for example, if you see that I'm using a public function initialize here, and I'm using this once module, which just calls this function whatever that we have here only once. Okay, so we have a stored fs file system create dir. We create a folder called test. Okay, and then over there we create an empty image of 10 cross 10 size. Okay, and I just like save it as test slash sample.jpg file. Okay, that's it. Okay, so that's how I'm creating this file. And once that is done, I also create like just assign a value to our output path constant, which is just test output.json, because I want to write all the data whatever that we're using for test to a different file and not to our default file, because you don't want a user to say, hey, what happened to my previous data while I was testing it, something got removed. Okay, so that's why I am doing it this way. And that's it. And you also have an exit function which just removes the file test output.json whenever that is called. Okay, so all right, let's start with the image invalid current index. For example, here you see that we are marketing as a test. Sorry, we are marking it as test. Oh god. And then you're also saying that this should panic with an expected message of invalid index, right? What that means is, let's say you have a current index is equal to -1. Okay, and then you want to load the image. Now this should be invalid, right? Because there can be no such image with an index of -1 in a folder. Because what I wanted to do was, this is a sample function which takes the current index and a folder, like it has a list of all the strings, like paths of that sub files or whatever, right, in that folder, right? So current index as -1 is invalid, so this should just panic out with an expected message of invalid index. So it does. Okay, and then you have test fetch invalid, sorry, valid current index invalid image. Okay, so when a current index is valid but the invalid image is there, that means what you can just do is you can pass an invalid path. You don't even need to create a text file and all. You can just say that the path is invalid, for example, right? So when you say that current index is 0 and you have path buff equal to from star invalid sample.jpg and the test folder is already being created, remember that we are calling initialize in every test function. This needs to be called in every test function, but it will be eventually called only once, because that's how it works, right? And you can see that once we do fetch image, we also check that the result is an error, because we are not panicking here. We are just raising an error because we want to show it on the UI side. We don't want to panic, right? The app should not quit, right? And for some reason this error message is different on Windows. So if anyone is using Windows, please feel free to just resolve this comment, and I'll be very happy to accept a PR for this. Okay, similarly for here, valid current index and valid image, you already know that we have test sample.jpg generated by initialize function. So that's already there, and we are checking that result is okay, right? So these are a few things that we are testing over here. The other thing that I'm doing like within this backend logic of this whole app is, whatever data that we get, we kind of convert into an annotated stored struct. Like it is a struct that has a hash map corresponding to image to properties map entry, right? And over there you will have the key as folder path, and the value is going to be a vector of properties. Okay, this is another struct which has index, image, path, annotation, comments, and last updated, that you already saw, right? And this annotated store, so I'm using the Serde library to like serialize and deserialize this struct and JSON file respectively, right? So that's what I'm doing, and I'm always like just testing whether this works properly or not. So over here, if you see that I'm doing init JSON object, which is a function I already have, what it does is it takes a folder path, and it also takes all paths. That means whatever the files, like whatever the path of the files in the folder. Wow, this rhymes for some reason. Okay, now we have a JSON object that is returned from here, and I'm just kind of getting rid of last updated time because I don't want to test it right now. So that was a bit of effort, and I don't want to overcomplicate it right now. So you see that I'm just changing, like I'm getting the last updated time here, and I'm making sure that it's not tested, like it is the same as an expected JSON object as well. So here you see that expected JSON object is created with the last updated time, whatever that we got here, right? So everything else that is based on my logic, and the last updated time is from whatever the output we got over here. Okay, so it's probably still not there, but I'm repeating this. It's still in active development. I just want to show you how you can do it and how you can contribute to this app as well. Okay, and at the end I'm just checking whether these two objects are equal or not, right? And if you're curious, like like I can show you. So this is the annotated store definition, right? And you see that we have deserialized, serialized, default, debug, clone, equal, equal, and partial equal, right? So this equal and partial equal helps me to call assert equal JSON object and expected JSON object over there. So you see, so this is done by that, okay? And similarly, you also check whether this JSON object empty when there are no path, like when there are no files in a folder, when that means the folder is empty, right? So it should just be an empty list, right? So that is also checked over here, which is kind of really nice that I'm testing all these things, right? Because these are a few edge cases that a person will give you, right? So you also want to make sure when the folder, see, folder path can never be incorrect because they have to select it manually, okay? They are not going to mark it as a variable or something, right? So they don't have the access to the code when they're using the app, right? They have the access to the UI. So that's safe to assume that the folder will be there, but the files can be empty, right? So there are a few other things that we are testing. For example, now this is deserializing as well. So when you have the JSON file, like you have this string and you want to make sure when you are deserializing this, right, this works properly or not, okay? So you create annotated stored struct object yourself, and then you have an expected string, and you kind of just try to make sure that when you convert this object to JSON string, that also works, right? So these are the few things we are testing already. So this is deserializing, and when you serialize, that means when you have a string and you want to convert this into annotated store, right? When you want to serialize this into an annotated store, right? So you do JSON from star raw string and you pass it over there, and you check whether, like, unwrap, if it's successful, then it's all good. Otherwise, you panic, couldn't serialize, right? And that's it. Store is equal to annotated store, and we check assert equal, right? So that's it. All right, so these are the few things that we are doing already. It's a lot, so please make sure that you scroll through it and try to find out what's relevant to your interest. Okay, now over here, this is very important when you want to check whether a JSON file is written properly or not, right? So how we test that? For example, we have annotated store object again created, right? I think we can probably just mark it as a constant because we are using it everywhere. Then we have this helper function, write JSON, right? We pass a reference to our store object over there. The reason we are passing the reference and not we are not giving the ownership right now because we want to use the store object later on as well, okay? And then we are doing this content equal to std fs read to string output path dot expect couldn't read file. Then we get the content, and then we do from star content, and then we expect, like, this is just to avoid unwrap or else in panic and all. So we just do expect invalid JSON file, and we check whether v and store are equal. What that means is, right, that you have store object. When you write it as a JSON file, then you try to read the output path. Remember, this write JSON will like write the whole data stored in the store object to output path. So we read this file content, and then we just printing it just for my own convenience, but yeah, I need to remove this anyway. So once we get this data, we convert this string to JSON object, and then we make sure that these are equal, right? And once you're done, you can exit because you want to make sure that this output path, whatever the path was, the file should be empty after this test function, right? So these are the few things we are doing already. The other tests that we are doing for writing JSON as well, for example, as I said, what if the file exists already? So I kind of make sure that I have first store and second store. What that means is, first you write this store, and once that is done, you write the second store as well. So this kind of gives you an idea that, okay, what if the user opens the app multiple times, whether the JSON file is retained or not, right? So these are the few things that we are testing it right now. So the coverage is not complete, and testing is very, very important. The reason why I'm using Rust is mostly because of this, because when I'm using JavaScript, HTML, CSS, right, the logic is in JavaScript. You need to test it properly as well, while HTML, CSS are like decoupled from the whole backend logic, which is kind of good. You can do that in Rust as well. You can have a whole different folder for UI, and logic can be separate as well. But the point is, the language is changed over there, and I'm not a perfect, like, I'm not an expert over there. In Rust, I'm not an expert as well, but I like to stay constant with backend and front end, which is what I'm enjoying right now. So that's my personal opinion, and that's my feedback about Iced as well. That the fact that I can do it, uh, everything in Rust, including testing, UI, backend logic, everything, literally everything, I'm really happy about it. Right. So I really I'll appreciate you guys if you want to take a look. Please go ahead and follow the repository given in the description down below. Test it out, yourself on your systems. The releases should be there, so you can find the binary on the website, and that should help you out with the testing as well if you just want to test and not build. But yeah, that's it. If you want to test, see, there's one thing I think, if I show you quickly, if you go to .github and you workflows over here, we are testing like, so here we have cargo test threads is one. And the reason we are doing this is because when you're writing JSON, you don't want to have multiple functions writing to a same file. That will kind of have a race condition. So that's why I'm not doing it. So if you see that this cargo test will succeed right now, so all the tests are passing, which is okay, but that also means that we have not tested properly because we just found a bug, right? All right, so that's it about this video. Thank you so much for staying with me over here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like the content, please make sure that you subscribe and like the video as well. I hope you don't mind doing that. It takes a lot of efforts while we're recording videos, and a lot of money goes into buying a good mic as well. So yeah, I'll appreciate that. Any feedback you have, please put down those comments in the YouTube video, on the YouTube video, sorry. And make sure that you join my Discord channel if you want. That's it for today. Thank you so much. This was Kushash Ravish Mali, and you're on my YouTube channel. Thank you. Have a good day.